What's happening, guys? This is RRPG here, and I'm here to present another 2 cents video on the 2 cents block for you all. As we all know, E3 2015 is happening right now, and there is plenty of excitement and disappointment coming from the masses who are at the event or watching it through YouTube, Twitch, and the rest of the internet. While working with the Game Riffers on our E3 live streams that covered everything from the Smash Bros. New content direct to Square Enix's press conference, we all shared mostly our excitement for things that are coming in the future. Everything from the new IPs being worked on, sequels to games that are long overdue for new installments, and remakes of older games being brought to a newer generation of gamers, we felt that E3 was spot on for almost every company that was there, albeit there were a few that fell flat. After watching the press conferences and newer information being brought about on the show floor, I noticed something different started to come into light, which began to make much more sense after I watched the most recent video from RazorFist on YouTube. By the way, if you haven't seen any videos from RazorFist, you are certainly missing out on great content on his channel, so go subscribe to him if you haven't. His video was him expressing his heavy discontent with E3 having more retreading of older material than innovating with newer ideas. After watching his video, I completely agree with him. Let me explain. We all know that E3 is there for game developers and publishers to show off their newer material just so they can impress not only gamers, but to stockholders, investors, retailers, and shareholders, right? While that is mostly true with whether or not a game represents itself as a new IP, a sequel, or a remake, I couldn't help but notice that a vast majority of games that were coming from mostly everyone were everything but hardly any newer IPs. You may argue that from Microsoft's press conference that they had Recore from Keiji Inafune and Armature Studios, Sony having Horizon Zero Dawn from Guerrilla Games, and even Nintendo with Splatoon that came out last month. And I agree with you there. However, those are just a minority when it came to game companies, as there were far more sequels and remakes that were abound. With Microsoft, we got to see the likes of Halo 5, Forza Motorsport 6, and Gears 4. With Sony, we got to see Uncharted 4, Shenmue 3 being announced as a Kickstarter, and Final Fantasy VII finally getting remade. With Nintendo, we got to see a new Star Fox, a new Mario Tennis, and a new Mario & Luigi game with Paper Mario in it. What do all three have in common? They are newer games or remakes from long-lasting franchises that have been around for quite a long time. The more I reflect back at the press conferences, the more I begin to question whether or not publishers and developers have forgotten what it means to evolve the industry, aside from the innovation that independent developers manage to create every year. From what it looks like, it definitely is the case. I guess you can say from my stance that E3 2015 has been a lukewarm type of experience this year, because the old began to overshadow the new by a mile. Every developer and publisher is guilty of this, even the big three. How much longer are we going to continue to persuade Microsoft to work on a new Halo in Gears of War? How much longer are we going to continue begging at Sony to work on a new Uncharted or even a new God of War? How much longer are we going to keep clamoring at Nintendo for more Mario and Zelda? The more I get excited for E3, the more I become very disappointed in the end when hardly anything new or innovative comes out from the big guns in the industry. I mean, seriously. Some of you might say, but Double R, Bloodborne was a brand new IP from Sony. Yes, it was. However, look at the gameplay perspective for a second, would you? The game is hard as balls, you die and end up in a spirit world if you didn't survive, and the atmosphere is dark and grimy as hell. What other game comes to mind that takes that same approach? Oh, that's right, Dark Souls, ladies and gentlemen. It's a copy and paste of Dark Souls, but with more of an influence of a dark time within Romania and the Czech Republic. But Double R! What about the Order 1886? That was a brand new IP too! Yes, it was. But looking at the gameplay, what does it remind you of? You know what, I'm just going to cut to the chase and say that the game is like if Gears of War made love to Heavy Rain and gave us their deformed child to the masses. It played and felt like those two games together. But Double R! Horizon Zero Dawn is a newly announced IP. That shouldn't be comparable to anything! Okay, I guess you got me there. If anything of a new IP has really intrigued me, then it is Recore for the Xbox One, Horizon Zero Dawn on the PlayStation 4, and the recently released Splatoon on the Wii U. Other than that, the amount of innovation is getting less and less with each new E3 on a yearly basis that it is getting ridiculous. Microsoft screwed up, Sony screwed up, and of course Nintendo screwed up, which I will have an opinion piece on Nintendo's digital event in another video. My point in this video is that innovation really needs to hit full force with newer IPs that strive on newer ideas in gameplay, settings, tone, visuals, music, and concepts. And this E3 seemed to be at its core with being the complete opposite of that. I keep asking, how much longer must the general public accept more of sequels and remakes before they can move on to accept newer ideas? Must we always bank on a sequel to Grand Theft Auto, Halo, Gears of War, Uncharted, God of War, Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Skylanders, Street Fighter, Resident Evil, Tekken, Soul Calibur, and the many others that have become so immensely popular? I mean, should we? Now, some of you might think that I despise and loathe some of the new content that was announced by the big guns at E3. The answer to that is no, I don't. I'm very happy to see the new Star Fox shown off for the first time, as well as the new Mario Tennis, Mario & Luigi Paper Jam, The Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes, and the new Metroid Prime Federation Forces from Nintendo. I'm very happy to see so much of the great stuff coming for the PlayStation 4, like The Last of Us, Shenmue 3, and especially the Final Fantasy VII Remake. For Xbox One, I am really happy to see some of the newer games coming out that are brand new or sequels in that sense. Even some third parties like Square Enix has me very intrigued in the number of games they have in the works. I'm really looking forward to those things as a gamer. But as a constructive critic, the industry really needs to get its head out of its ass and start innovating once more instead of just the indie developers, because stuff like the constant release of sequels and remakes doesn't evolve the industry, as it halts its progression. You may not believe me, but something like that is another reason why we are in the downward spiral that will lead to the second video game crash. The industry really needs to take heed of this when it comes to E3, because I really do not want to see the likes of Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and many third parties that I once loved and still somewhat enjoy to die in obscurity, but they will be as time keeps flowing on if something isn't done. I'm telling you, it will happen if this doesn't change, guys. Alright guys, that is all I have to say on this subject, and I want to hear what you all think. Do you agree with me, or do you disagree with me on some things that I might have overlooked? Oh, and by the way, if you have criticism toward my opinion piece, I only ask you to be constructive, civil, and open-minded with your beliefs, because any butthurt accusations and rash behavior is not tolerable. If I see that in this video's comment section or any other, I will not hesitate but to delete your comment or possibly even ban you from my channel if you decide to go overboard. Anyway, make sure to rate this video as well as leaving your positive and negative feedback down in the comments. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button underneath that video, as more support from you guys will mean that more content is coming from me in the future that you won't even find anywhere else. Until next time, this is RRPG signing off by saying Godspeed and game on, gamers. Have a good one and enjoy E3 2015.